Hollywood has long sold audiences the thrill of impossible stunts, breathtaking explosions, and heroes who defy every conceivable danger. Yet, behind the spectacle lies a secret layer of the industry that rarely reaches the public eye. Every chase, every villainous plot, and every explosive moment is carefully managed, not only for entertainment, but also to navigate a hidden web of legal threats. From disputes over intellectual property to claims by individuals who allege their lives or ideas were used without permission, the risk behind the camera is often as high stakes as the action on screen. Many films are built on precarious foundations. Some borrow concepts from unpublished scripts, while others recreate events or personalities so convincingly that lawsuits loom the moment the credits roll. Studios often resolve these issues quietly, negotiating settlements, altering scripts at the last moment, and ensuring key parties are legally restrained from speaking out. Behind every blockbuster, there are untold stories of risk management, high-stakes negotiations, and confidential agreements that ensure the public sees only the finished spectacle. Audiences rarely realize that what they enjoy on screen is supported by unseen battles fought in boardrooms and legal offices. Some films were inches away from cancellation, rewritten to avoid court cases, or silenced through carefully negotiated settlements. Tonight, we lift the veil to reveal the hidden conflicts that almost derailed some of Hollywood's most beloved action films. These are the stories of danger, secrecy, and legal peril that exist behind the curtain, shaping the movies we thought we knew. Fact 1. Die Hard. Die Hard, released in 1988, remains one of the most celebrated action films of all time, yet its production teetered on the edge of serious legal trouble. The movie was adapted from Roderick Thorpe's novel, Nothing Lasts Forever, but early screenplay drafts diverged considerably, prompting the author's representatives to prepare for potential copyright action. The changes included new plot lines, altered character motivations, and significant narrative additions that raised questions about adherence to the original work. In addition, the depiction of the Nakatomi Plaza, an actual corporate building, led to disputes over possible reputational damage and defamation, as the building's use in a terrorist scenario created concern among the owners. Beyond copyright, real-life counterterrorism officials claimed that certain elements of the villainous characters closely mirrored operational information, which risked exposing classified or sensitive data. Legal teams worked around the clock to revise character details, including backstories and accents, while ensuring that writers eliminated any potentially risky references. Documents called the redacted binder were reviewed and destroyed to prevent evidence of early script variations from surfacing. Thanks to careful legal management, Die Hard reached audiences without interruption and became a defining example of action cinema. Its enduring success underscores that blockbuster films often survive as much due to behind-the-scenes legal vigilance as they do to on-screen spectacle. Fact 2. The Terminator. When The Terminator premiered in 1984, audiences were captivated by a futuristic tale of a relentless robotic assassin, yet the production faced multiple plagiarism allegations. Writers argued that the film bore striking similarities to prior television scripts and unpublished manuscripts featuring time-traveling assassins and dystopian futures. One prominent claim involved a television creator asserting that the antagonist's relentless pursuit, combined with narrative arcs and suspenseful pacing, was taken from his earlier works, complicating matters. An independent writer contended that James Cameron had accessed his unpublished manuscript years prior, including the characterization of a machine-like antagonist designed to blend into human society. The studio faced the possibility of costly litigation if these claims were substantiated. To mitigate the risk, a confidential settlement was arranged with the writers, granting financial compensation and retroactive credits while imposing strict non-disclosure clauses. Through this discreet legal handling, The Terminator avoided public court proceedings and went on to achieve cult status. The film demonstrates that even groundbreaking ideas can carry hidden risks when similarities to prior works exist, and that careful legal oversight is crucial in protecting studios and creative teams. Fact 3. Speed. Speed, released in 1994, thrilled audiences with its story of a bomb-rigged bus and high-stakes tension, but the production faced immediate legal scrutiny. A screenwriter claimed that the film mirrored his unpublished script, particularly sequences involving the bus, suspenseful pacing, and hero-villain interactions. Simultaneously, a Japanese production company raised concerns that the concept closely resembled a 1985 action movie involving a vehicle rigged with explosives. Internal review revealed that a development assistant had previously read the independent writer's material, creating potential exposure for copyright infringement claims. To resolve these issues, the studio offered a confidential settlement, providing compensation and requiring non-disclosure agreements to prevent public discussion. Additional edits and reshoots were undertaken to sufficiently differentiate the film's scenes from prior works while preserving its thrilling narrative. The film's release proceeded without interruption, demonstrating how legal interventions behind the scenes ensured that audiences experienced the intended excitement without exposing the studio to potentially devastating lawsuits. Fact 4. Predator. Predator, released in 1987, became a classic action thriller, but its production nearly faced serious copyright disputes. Two writers claimed that the film's premise, soldiers hunted by an invisible, technologically advanced creature, closely mirrored an unpublished script they had submitted to studios in the late 1970 seconds. The similarities included narrative pacing, tension sequences, and the creature's abilities. When it was discovered that one of the film's producers had previously reviewed the earlier script, the possibility of a legal challenge intensified. The studio initiated a confidential investigation, reviewing all relevant communications, draft scripts, and development notes to establish independent creation. Recognizing the risk of litigation that could delay the release, executives negotiated a discreet settlement with the writers, providing financial compensation and strict non-disclosure agreements. These measures ensured that the dispute remained private while allowing production to continue without public scrutiny. Ultimately, the survival of Predator relied not only on its action sequences and special effects, but also on the legal strategy employed behind the scenes. Without these interventions, the film could have faced injunctions or significant modifications that might have altered its legacy as one of Hollywood's iconic action thrillers. Fact 5. The Bourne Identity. The Bourne Identity, released in 2002, blended espionage with intense action, but it encountered legal concerns regarding the depiction of covert operations. A former intelligence contractor claimed that several sequences in the film, including surveillance techniques, escape maneuvers, and psychological training methods, closely resembled procedures he had developed for classified operations. The allegation raised the risk of exposing sensitive information and potential liability for the studio. Studio attorneys conducted a thorough review of the script and consulted technical advisors to determine whether any confidential material had been improperly used. While no direct link was established, minor revisions were made to sequences depicting operational methods to reduce legal exposure. Private negotiations with the contractor concluded with a settlement including strict non-disclosure agreements, ensuring the dispute would not become public. The film's release proceeded smoothly, demonstrating how Hollywood action productions often require careful management of both creative and legal risks. The Bourne Identity illustrates that behind every thrilling sequence lies a network of protective measures that preserve both the narrative and the studio's interests. Fact 6. Lethal Weapon 2. Lethal Weapon 2, released in 1989, combined intense action with political intrigue, yet its depiction of South African diplomats as corrupt operatives generated legal and diplomatic concern. Certain individuals claimed that the characters mirrored their personal histories, while a South African writer alleged that the screenplay borrowed from his unpublished manuscript detailing similar political interference. These overlapping claims posed a substantial risk to the studio. To mitigate potential litigation, confidential settlements were negotiated with the affected parties. Some international versions of the film were altered to soften politically sensitive content, while non-disclosure agreements ensured that neither claimants nor studio employees could disclose details publicly. Studio lawyers also coordinated with government representatives to prevent escalation that might threaten global distribution. Through careful negotiation and strategic editing, Lethal Weapon 2 premiered successfully, demonstrating that even high-profile action sequels depend as much on legal oversight as on stunt coordination and narrative execution. Fact 7. True Lies. True Lies, released in 1994, combined high-energy action with espionage, but the film quickly drew legal attention for its depiction of Middle Eastern characters. A California-based community claimed that the terrorists in the film closely resembled real-life activists, including specific mannerisms, speech patterns, and visual cues. Their legal representatives threatened defamation proceedings, arguing that the portrayal falsely linked a real community to criminal activities. Studio executives initially dismissed the claims as fictional exaggeration, yet an internal review discovered that one of the film's research consultants had attended public lectures given by the activist in question. Recognizing the potential for litigation, the studio negotiated a private settlement, providing financial compensation and enforcing strict non-disclosure agreements. Post-production adjustments were also made to dialogue and promotional materials to further reduce identification risks. The careful handling of these disputes allowed True Lies to premiere worldwide without public legal conflict. Despite the film's explosive action and comedic elements, its successful release relied heavily on discreet legal management and strategic adjustments to mitigate real-world controversy. Fact 8. The Rock. The Rock, released in 1996, enthralled audiences with its plot involving rogue Marines and VX nerve gas on Alcatraz Island. But it faced serious legal challenges. A former military chemist claimed that the procedures and emergency protocols depicted in the film closely matched confidential methods he had developed for government use. The allegation implied unauthorized use of sensitive information, creating potential legal and national security risks. Studio attorneys immediately assessed the claim, consulting both technical advisors and government officials to determine exposure. Minor adjustments were made to technical dialogue and procedural depictions, while confidential negotiations with the chemist concluded with a settlement protected by strict non-disclosure agreements. These measures ensured that the information did not enter public circulation and that the film could proceed with its planned release. Through these legal interventions, The Rock maintained both its narrative integrity and public release schedule. The film exemplifies how blockbuster action productions often balance thrilling storytelling with meticulous management of legal and security concerns behind the scenes. Fact 9. Point Break. Point Break, released in 1991, presented high-stakes surfing and bank robbery narratives, but its production faced multiple legal threats. A former FBI trainee claimed that the film utilized specific undercover techniques and procedural details from his training materials, while professional surfing communities alleged defamation, arguing that the film unfairly depicted surfers as criminals. Both claims posed substantial risks of litigation and reputational harm. To prevent delays and legal escalation, the studio negotiated confidential settlements, including financial compensation and non-disclosure agreements for all involved parties. Certain sequences in international releases were modified to reduce resemblance to real individuals and communities. Internal reviews ensured that no other confidential or proprietary materials were incorporated into the production. Despite these hidden challenges, Point Break premiered successfully, demonstrating that major action films often rely on legal strategy and careful negotiation as much as they do on thrilling stunts and narrative tension. The studio's efforts behind the scenes ensured audiences experienced the intended excitement without exposure to potential lawsuits. Fact 10. The Matrix. The Matrix, released in 1999, revolutionized science fiction and action cinema, yet it faced significant legal scrutiny regarding authorship. An independent writer claimed that the film's core premise, a simulated reality controlled by intelligent machines, closely mirrored elements in her unpublished manuscript that had circulated within the industry. While no direct proof linked the filmmakers to her work, coverage notes and internal references created a potential legal risk. The studio's legal team conducted an extensive review of scripts, memos, and development documents to establish independent creation. To mitigate potential litigation, a discreet settlement was negotiated, providing financial compensation to the writer under strict non-disclosure terms. Minor adjustments were also made in extended universe materials to further distinguish the film from external sources. Ultimately, The Matrix premiered without public litigation, maintaining both its commercial success and narrative originality. The case illustrates the importance of meticulous legal oversight when developing high-profile, innovative action films. Fact 11. Top Gun. Top Gun, released in 1986, became a cinematic icon, but legal challenges arose due to real-life inspirations. The family of a deceased naval aviator claimed that Maverick's character mirrored their relative's personality and career achievements. Additionally, a journalist argued that several anecdotes, terminology, and operational details were derived from confidential interviews he had conducted. These claims created a significant risk of privacy and publicity lawsuits. The studio coordinated with legal counsel and military representatives to negotiate confidential settlements. Adjustments to script and promotional materials minimized the potential for defamation claims, and non-disclosure agreements prevented public disclosure of sensitive details. These measures ensured that the film could be distributed internationally without interruption. The enduring success of Top Gun demonstrates that legal considerations behind the scenes are often as critical to a blockbuster's release as aerial stunts and compelling performances. Fact 12. Bad Boys 2. Bad Boys 2, released in 2003, offered adrenaline-fueled action and elaborate chase sequences. Yet, the production encountered multiple legal challenges. Residents of Miami filed complaints over property damage caused during filming, and a group of independent filmmakers alleged that elements of their prior script, particularly highway chase scenes and character dynamics, had been appropriated without consent. To resolve these disputes, the studio implemented confidential settlements, providing compensation and requiring non-disclosure agreements for all parties involved. Some sequences were edited to differentiate them from prior works, and internal documentation was reviewed to prevent further legal exposure. These interventions allowed the film to premiere as scheduled while preserving its visual intensity and narrative flow. Bad Boys 2 exemplifies how studios manage hidden legal and ethical challenges to ensure that action-packed storytelling can reach audiences without interruption or litigation. Fact 13. Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Rambo: First Blood Part 2, released in 1985, captivated audiences with intense action and daring rescues, yet it faced serious legal challenges behind the scenes. A retired military officer claimed that the depiction of certain antagonists mirrored his personal career, asserting that the storyline misrepresented his experiences. Simultaneously, a journalist argued that confidential research and notes regarding POW rescues had been used without permission, raising concerns about intellectual property and ethical considerations. The studio acted swiftly to prevent litigation, negotiating confidential settlements with both parties. Certain international cuts were modified to avoid political controversy, and non-disclosure agreements ensured that the details of these settlements remained private. Legal teams monitored communications closely to prevent further exposure. These behind-the-scenes measures allowed the film to be released successfully, demonstrating that blockbuster action movies often rely as much on legal protection and strategic settlements as they do on stunts, choreography, and compelling performances. Fact 14. Mission: Impossible 2. Mission: Impossible 2, released in 2000, dazzled audiences with high-octane action and breathtaking stunts, yet its production encountered legal scrutiny. A novelist claimed that central plot elements, including a rogue agent, a deadly virus, and corporate conspiracy, closely resembled a manuscript he had submitted to a studio years earlier. Internal investigation revealed that a junior story editor had previously worked at the agency handling the manuscript, creating potential exposure for the production. In addition, a biotech company raised concerns that certain scientific concepts mirrored proprietary research, further complicating the legal landscape. Studio attorneys negotiated confidential settlements with all parties to prevent public lawsuits. Minor adjustments were made to scientific terminology and plot details, ensuring that the film remained distinct while avoiding infringement claims. Through these measures, Mission: Impossible 2 premiered successfully, illustrating how blockbuster action films require careful legal oversight to protect intellectual property and safeguard the production from potential litigation. Fact 15. Face Off. Face Off, released in 1997, enthralled audiences with its inventive narrative and high-stakes action, yet it faced significant legal risks. A medical researcher claimed that the depiction of experimental face transplant procedures reflected confidential research he had developed under government contracts. Additionally, an independent screenwriter alleged that the central premise of enemies swapping identities originated in his previously submitted script. To mitigate potential litigation, the studio negotiated confidential settlements, including financial compensation and strict non-disclosure agreements. Minor revisions were applied to technical dialogue and plot exposition to distinguish the film from prior works without affecting its dramatic tension or action sequences. By managing these disputes discreetly, Face Off premiered as intended, demonstrating that even the most imaginative action films depend on careful legal oversight and strategic settlements to navigate potential lawsuits while preserving narrative and commercial success. Bonus fact: The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, released in 2008, became a landmark in action and superhero cinema, yet its production faced a highly confidential legal dispute regarding Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. The family of a deceased performance artist claimed that Ledger's character closely resembled their relative's private stage persona, including distinctive monologues, gestures, and makeup designs that had never been publicly released. They argued that the film appropriated a personal identity without consent. The claim extended to vocal cadence, psychological demeanor, and specific theatrical mannerisms, suggesting that the Joker's performance replicated private artistic work. Legal exposure posed a significant risk to both the studio and Ledger's legacy. Studio executives acted swiftly, negotiating a confidential settlement that included substantial compensation and binding non-disclosure agreements, ensuring that the matter remained private. Marketing materials were adjusted to emphasize Ledger's creative independence, and subtle modifications were made in promotional images to further differentiate the character. Through careful legal management, The Dark Knight premiered without public litigation and maintained its critical and commercial success. The incident demonstrates how even the most celebrated action films rely on discreet legal oversight to protect intellectual property, personal rights, and the studio's reputation behind the scenes. Hollywood often presents blockbuster action films as pure spectacle, daring stunts, explosive sequences, and larger-than-life heroes. But behind the scenes, the reality is far more complex. Each film carries hidden legal battles, confidential settlements, and carefully orchestrated negotiations that determine whether a project reaches audiences or becomes lost to litigation. Writers, producers, and legal teams work tirelessly to protect intellectual property, navigate defamation risks, and preserve both the studio's reputation and the film's narrative integrity. The action movies explored in this episode survived because of these unseen interventions. From subtle script adjustments to quiet financial settlements, each production relied on a network of legal protections to prevent potentially devastating lawsuits. Countless other films remain hidden in vaults, their legal histories sealed by non-disclosure agreements and studio confidentiality, waiting for those persistent enough to uncover them. If you want more stories behind the explosions, the stunts, and the spectacle secrets that Hollywood hoped you would never know, there is always another curtain to pull back. The files remain, and the hidden truths are waiting to be revealed to those willing to look behind the velvet curtain.